All right, here we are again, episode number 5, Ask a Digital Mentor. And today we've got a special guest joining us today on this show. We've got fellow Canadian and fellow digital mentor, Katy Suik. Katy, welcome to the show. Very excited to have you here. We're going to be talking about a really exciting topic, a topic that I'm passionate about as well. And I think a topic that a lot of people can benefit learning from. We're going to be talking about virtual summits and kind of your journey into getting into virtual summits. So I'm going to hit live on the Instagram channel here, and hopefully that's going to work because I've never gone live on Instagram yet. I think it's working. Okay.
I have not done that, so
I think it's going.
There we go.
We've got like 7 channels going now, so that's awesome. If you're joining us, if you're checking out the stream, please make sure to comment so we can see your comments, so we can say hello, and do think about some questions that you might want to ask Katy or myself. We are going to be talking about virtual summits. We're going to be talking about, potentially speaking on a summit. Some of you may have goals of speaking on summits. Vicky just joined. I know that she is speaking on a summit coming up. And maybe you've thought about the idea of hosting your own summit. So we're going to be talking a lot about that as well. So Katy, why don't you just start us off and give us a little bit of background on yourself? How did you get involved in this digital marketing space? What's your story?
Well, it's a story and a half, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So I actually started my business way back in 2011. And so for the first 10, 11, 12 years, it was just struggle. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2020. But ironically for me, that was when I was starting to lean into online anyways. So I started to sort of dip my toes in the water and signed up for some coaching, and then that led to me doing some leadership training, which created all kinds of connections, which led me into learning how to run summits. So it was kind of a gradual growth process for me. But one of the things I learned in all of that is I never had a strategy. I was just throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing if it would stick. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do that. We're like, well, that didn't work. But one of the most powerful things one of my former coaches said to me was, Katy, you need to stick to something for a minimum of 1 year. And you need to do it more than once in order to see results. And I'm like, 1 year, that's a long time. I would rather not waste time on things that don't work. But she's kind of right. So I started my first summit, I believe, was in January of 2022. Am I thinking that out loud correctly? Or was it 2023? I don't even remember. I've done 6. And my journey getting there has been, it's been a blend of learning the strategy, number one, but also getting clear for myself, like, who am I serving? What am I even doing? And all of it has taught me so much, which I'm sure we're going to unpack today in terms of how it all comes together.
Yeah, what an incredible journey. I mean, you said you started in 2011 with your business and then you went online. So what were you doing before you went online, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, well, I was a mom. I had 3 kids under 5 for those first few years. So that was a story in and of itself. And I was trying to do in person. So I live in a community about a day's drive from you, Norbert, in Prince George, British Columbia in Canada. And I had, I was actually getting contracts with the local university and the college, and I had the odd client here and there. But the challenge at that time was, how do you be a mom and manage all that and not pay for daycare, which is through the roof, and make money? So I was caught in that until about 2015 or so. And then I will be honest with you, I feel like I had to go to the University of Mistakes in order to get to where I am now. I did everything the wrong way. And maybe that's on purpose so that I can actually teach people what not to do and what to actually do to create the proper results. So yeah, so I had no systems. I spent a lot of time doing, the whole thing, hiding behind the screen, making spreadsheets really pretty,
Getting ready
doing
to get
all
ready.
the things, getting ready to get ready all the time. Yes, that was I don't look back on it and go, yay, go me. It's more like, oh.
Well, I honestly, I really love that. And I appreciate that because, having worked with thousands of entrepreneurs over the last 15 years, a lot of people struggle. And I think we need to accept the fact, and I said this in our interview together, is that we're going to pay for our education. One way or another, you're going to pay for your education, whether it's a university degree in, marketing or business or something like that, or you do it through the school of hard knocks and you do it through failure and mistakes and trial and error and all that kind of stuff. You're going to pay for it one way or another. And for some reason, we start on an online business and we think it's going to be easier than it is. And I think maybe a part of that is social media, especially today, because we see all of these kids having success and making money and traveling around the world. And it's like, oh my God, this is so easy. I'm just going to start an online business and make money online. But we don't really understand what it takes to get there. So I love the fact that you've got this story of struggle and making a lot of mistakes and not being sure of what you're doing. And I love the advice that you got. Try something and work at it for a year. Now, how many people listening here have actually given a strategy that much time before throwing it in the bucket and trying something else again? Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what were some of the things you tried before, and what was your experience getting into the summits, and what got you to stick with it long enough?
Such good questions. Such good questions. So I think that before, I don't think I saw how the dots connected. So I would host a workshop, I would host a retreat, I would have a client for 3 months or 6 months. Nothing was connected to the other thing. And I didn't understand what it meant to, upsell or to lead someone into the next best thing. I was just kind of like, the spaghetti against the wall, try to bring in the money to pay for the daycare. So there was a desperation energy behind it, and it was very disjointed. So I think as a fairly organized person, I craved understanding how to make this machine of sorts actually work. And I remember saying to a coach early on when I was starting, I'm like, I just want to make this into a well-oiled machine. But the problem at that time was I didn't know what all the parts were. So how do you build something until you've learned what all the parts are? And then you figure out how they fit together. And then you have to do all the tweaking and the pivoting and the fixing and all of the things. So when I finally got to the point where I basically purchased a program where I could learn how to run summits and be coached at the same time, by that point, I was ready. I was like, teach me how to do this. And, that was hugely beneficial on the one hand. What I would say, and I could talk about this more later, is that mindset is a side thing too, because as much as you can have the best strategy in the world, and if you don't believe in what you're doing, and if you don't have the confidence, it's very difficult to pull through on the strategy. But I could touch on that more later. But the thing is that the strategy with learning how to run a summit, and the very first one I did, I believe I called it Unleash Your Purpose. So I was still in a space of, I don't actually know what I'm doing. I mean, I knew as a coach what I got passionate about and excited about, and that was really helping people figure out what is that thing for them? How do they go create that life that they want? But it's still so generic. And so each time I did a summit, I learned everything from all of the moving parts behind the scenes, for one thing. But some of the more valuable lessons were around who would my speakers be? And they had to be really aligned with some of the things that I stand for, like integrity and service and creating that impact. But I didn't learn those things overnight. And in fact, the most recent one that I did where I had you, Norbert, was the best I've done in terms of the quality of speakers, the way everybody was just there in a shared spirit of impact and service. And but I could tell you that 3 summits ago, I was still struggling to understand what I was giving my audience. So it's almost like the strategy is one thing, but it also helped me to formulate and figure out what all those pieces are for the machine, because you're looking at it going, I have no idea how these two things go together, but you can only learn by application. So that's really that's what that did for me.
Yeah. Oh my God. That I literally had like 6 different questions just from what you were saying there. You brought up so many different things. Let's start with mindset, because you mentioned mindset, right? And one of the
Okay.
things that I experienced was I experienced 7 years of struggle and failure in network marketing, affiliate marketing, and online. And then all of a sudden in 2007, I met the right mentor. I had the right opportunity. And literally within 3 months, I was able to quit my job and I was starting to make a 6-figure income. Okay. And, you look at that and it's like, wow, all of a sudden he had success. But the truth is that for 7 years, I was growing and I was learning and I was developing my skill sets and I was developing, most importantly, my mindset. How is your mindset different in, let's say, 2015? 2021
Mm.
even, to getting started in actually doing the virtual summits, and then to today, 6 summits in? How has your mindset shifted and changed over time?
You asked me such good questions. I'm like, oh, we're going to be talking all day, just so you know. Um, so 2015, if I was to go back to that, being the space that I was in, I don't think I knew well, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So at the time, it just felt like this sort of, I was probably, the best analogy I can come up with is I was just, treading water. I was trying to stay afloat. I was hopeful, always hopeful that tomorrow would bring me the thing I needed. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. But tomorrow never came because I kept doing the same things over and over and over. Until, if we fast forward to 2020, 2021, I think that the pain, the exhaustion, the beating that it was taking on my confidence and my belief in the thing that I'm here to do had gotten so painful that it was either invest money I didn't have to change the game or quit. And to me, that when you have that inner like fire, that pull inside of you, quitting just isn't has never been an option. Even though I felt it many times. I mean, you've been there too, I'm sure. You're just,
Mhm.
bathroom floor bawling, like, why am I doing this to myself? And that's where I was at many, many, many a time. 2021, I think I was just kind of in that phase of peeling back some of the gunk that had built up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had almost developed a bit of a victim consciousness just because I felt so beat down.
Wow.
So when you're in victim consciousness, everything becomes about you. And it's not that I was trying to be a selfish, person. It was more like, I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. I can't get this thing to work. And those all became this sort of painful part of my truth at the time. So from 2020 till even 2023, I mean, we're all evolving all the time, but unpacking all of that and creating space for complete, almost emotional, spiritual, physical separation of my value, my inherent worth from my business. Because
Ooh, I
that,
love that.
right? For so long, that's why it was so painful. I made it about me. I made it mean something about my inherent value. And when you do that and you don't make money, guess what happens? You start to feel like not a whole heck of a lot of, you know? So now I'm in a place where if something is to happen, if something in my business goes forward and either it works or it doesn't work, I am way more able to look at it objectively and say, I wonder why that flopped. Or I'm not so attached to the outcome. I'm more curious about it and I'm not making it about me. I am valuable just because I am. There's nothing that I can do or not do to change the value of my essence, who I am. And my business is just an extension. It's just my way of showing up and serving people in the world. And it's constant. I always say that, and I know you would agree, and I'm sure we talked about this before, that owning a business, running a business is probably the most effective personal development tool out there. There's
That
nothing
and,
else.
well, relationships and kids.
Oh, that you, yes. Absolutely, absolutely. But it's just like every time it's that new level, new devil thing. Every time we step up we've got to confront our insecurities, our beliefs, everything. And so I hope that answered your question. I've just really removed, this attachment to Katy Suik is good or not good based on what her business is doing. And that's a big
it's huge.
shift.
It's huge. I exclaimed because it was something I shared those words in a workshop. The first time it came out of my mouth, sometimes things come out of my mouth and they're literally from God. Like I don't even think about it, right? And
totally.
it was literally on that same thing. So when you said that, it was like, oh yes, that's it. It's separating your personal value away from the circumstances in your life, right? Like you are not, your value is not your bank account. It's not your business. It's not your car. It's not the things around your life. It's your inherent, true, God-given value that you possess.
Yes.
And that can't be taken away from you. And even to go one step further, I like to say that that value only increases over time because you become more valuable every single day through your experiences, whether they're losses or whether they're victories. You're learning and you're growing, and in a sense, you're becoming more valuable, right?
And you're stripping away all of the stuff, right? That is impeding who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you're becoming more valuable. Yeah.
So you said something about you got to a place where the pain was so bad, the frustration was so bad, the struggle had piled up on itself that you were ready to invest the money that you didn't have in order to get the breakthrough. So tell me a little bit about that, because I'm going to assume that you hired a mentor. And so, digital mentors, we talk a lot about mentorship. We are building mentors in this space. What was it about you at that time, and what was it about the mentor and about what the mentor was selling for you that got you motivated and driven enough to take that risk? Because I'm sure it was a risk to invest that money that you didn't have at that time. So just tell me about that experience a little bit, and what was it that got you to move forward instead of crumbling under the struggle and the failure?
Just as I'm thinking about it, all of those butterflies come back, because I'm like, ooh, that was a really challenging time, and for a number of different reasons. So first, I think that the whole internal struggle was also about I'm not providing for my family, and there was a lot of shame around that. Like, I should be further ahead by now. I should be bringing in money. I've given up this job. I've gone back. I had what I call a rotating door with the local college, going in for temporary jobs to supplement. But the fact that I just felt like I was failing my own family was probably the most painful thing of all. And I made a story about that, of course, about, I'm failing as a mom, I'm failing as a wife, I'm failing all the things. And there's a friend of mine in town who had successfully was running her own business. And she just said to me, Katy, you've got two options here. You can curl and run back home and, cry on the bathroom floor, or you can jump. And I'm like, jump. And of course, my whole heart's like, boom, boom, thump, thump, thump. But for me, because my purpose feels bigger than me and I'm a believer, I just knew, okay, I could almost feel my behind getting a swift kick off the cliff. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I don't want to stay here. So it was like, I have to really just dive in faith and know that somehow I will learn how to fly. I would not be led here just to die, And so, and the other tricky part, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about this, is having that conversation with my partner, who is an IT guy, very black and white. Things need to make sense logically. And when you have a wife who's very spiritual and intuitive, who wants to go and invest, $20,000 US on something, you're kind of going, how is that even making any sense when we aren't even making money? So try to explain that. And for me, it was like, if I get to the point where I'm creating 6-figure years, this money will be pocket change then, but I have to figure out how to build a bridge to get there. And this is the thing, it's an investment. So I started with a coach who, for the first 6 months, it worked really well. She taught me a lot about the separation thing from my value in my business. And she taught me a little bit about strategy. In the end, she brought me into leadership training, which is another program that just opened my world wide open. And that was beautiful. It's funny because you can look back in hindsight, and I've hired coaches, and that particular coach, like, it didn't end well necessarily, but the lessons were really powerful. And about 6 months later, I invested in my next coach, which is the one that taught me how to do summits. And I stayed with her for a couple of years, and then my needs changed, and we all evolve when we change. And so now I have a different coach, but I think the process for me was layer by layer by layer, learning what I call the 3 pillars, and I really work with my clients on this, like the knowing your why. For me, I've always known my why. I haven't always been able to articulate it, but it's always been there. My mindset, as you know, needed a complete overhaul. And of course, strategy. So doing the summits for me was a strategy to try. And doing it, really, I enjoyed a lot of it. It stressed me right out the first time because there's a lot to learn. And yet it was the first time I saw tangible, measurable results, which previous to that, I didn't understand. So,
nice. Okay, so let's dive in and let's talk about summits here, okay? Because there's so many different strategies that you could try to build an online business, regardless what kind of business you're building, whether it's a coaching business, an education business, affiliate marketing business, network marketing business, e-commerce business. It doesn't really matter. Marketing is marketing is marketing. And there's so many different strategies you could try. So you could have hired a coach. You could have hired a TikTok coach. You could have hired an Instagram coach. You could have hired a webinar coach. You could have hired a sales coach. What was it about virtual summits that drew you in, that pulled you in, that made you think, this is where I'm going to plant my flag. This is the strategy I'm going to commit to and learn and master and become an expert in?
What was it that led me in? I think it was, it scared me half to death. And as an introvert, to have to reach out to that many people and ask them to be a speaker, and it just scared me so much. And yet there's nothing I love more than connecting. So the introverted side of me was like, no. But the other side of me was like, yes. Yeah, exactly. So that was sort of the pulling thing. I'll be honest, I just wanted to try it and do a couple rounds to see, the first time was the learning. It was the messiest. It was the, figure things out process. By the time I'd done a second one, I was learning more and I was getting better at my systems. And then I realized by the time I got into the third one, I actually really love creating this. You take something that would not otherwise exist and you build this thing that has an impact on people for the better, I should hope. And I think that for me, it just made so much sense because I'm motivated by impact, like hands down. I love being able to inspire, educate, move people. And this was a way to do that on a larger scale. And each time I did it, I felt like I would learn something about what works and what doesn't, and also how to attract the kind of people you want to attract. So as a strategy, I think it's just because I got more and more comfortable, but every time I do it, I stretch myself a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's the thing that I enjoy doing, honestly. Now that I've mastered my systems, I can hire a VA to do a lot of the back-end stuff that I had to build. But it's a no-brainer in terms of, the kind of reach and the kind of income you could potentially create with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk about that first one, because there's a lot of people that are at that stage where they're trying to get their business off the ground, and maybe they're trying different strategies. It might not be summits, but I love using summits as an example because it really pushes you, like it challenges you. Number one, you're going to be showing up on video. So there's the video element of it. Yeah. Number two, you got to reach out and, like you said, connect with people, network with people, make a request of people, i.e. come and speak on my summit. Let's talk about that first one. Okay. Because this is for everybody that's like thinking about starting a podcast, right? Or just thinking about doing a YouTube channel, or even live streams like this, where you're bringing on guests and you're interviewing them, or perhaps you want to go all in on a summit. How did you What was that experience like? Like, how did you find the people to speak to? How did you reach out to them? How did you get through the barrier of, who am I? I'm a nobody. Why would somebody want to speak on this summit? Like, how did you overcome those really basic barriers that would hold a lot of people back and prevent them from moving forward?
Such a good question, because that ironically was probably the hardest part for me, for sure, because I felt like a little goldfish swimming in my little tiny tank. And it felt like I had to go jump in the ocean and talk to the whales. Like it just felt so big to me. And I know that feeling. I can relate to it. So I started small. My very first summit, I reached out to people. I didn't understand what I do now about the alignment piece, in terms of what is the audience you're trying to attract, what kind of speakers do you want to have. I was just like, I'm just throwing it all together and just see what happens. And so I had connections mainly from leadership, like the training I'd done and the connections I'd made, and they knew people who knew people. But I'll be honest, it was a bit thrown together, and I think there's permission to be made for being messy, you know. Um, and I'll never forget. I can remember, I wish I could go back. I could probably find myself sending voice recordings to friends of mine saying, "Oh my God, how do I do this? This is terrifying." I reached out to Lauren Powers, who I'd met her through networking, and she works with celebrities. She's up there, and I was absolutely terrified. She said yes. And Erica Carrico is another one. She's I don't know if anybody watches Facebook. She's all over the place. She's a single mom, and she does really, really well for herself, but she's so real about it. And I just boldly approached her one day. I said, "Hey," I felt like the little goldfish. I'm like, "Could you come and peek on my stomach?" Like, it was just terrifying. I think that my answer to that, though, is every time you feel scared, what do you have to lose? I've had some people say, no, and essentially I swim with bigger fish kind of thing, and that's okay. I'm not that big yet, and that's okay. But then I find people like you, Norbert, who I've had some people say to me, "How did you get him?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just knew someone who knew someone who knew someone." And it's just a beautiful connection piece that comes into play after a while. It gets easier with time. And I don't feel that same goldfish versus whale thing anymore, because you gain confidence, right? And you just start to think, these are just human beings that are also out there trying to do what they're trying to do. And it's a really,
yeah, exactly. I love that process though, in that journey. And that's why I wanted to bring up that first one, because I work with a lot of beginning entrepreneurs, and I've been there myself too. I vividly remember, those experiences as well. And I'm an introvert as well. So even for me, I'm still, even though I've been in this industry for 15 years, I still get nervous reaching out and contacting people. Like, it's just a normal human trait that we have. It's a fight and flight survival. And so we have to understand it's just part of the process, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah, you will. I promise.
Okay, you're going to survive it, and you're going to move on. So let's talk about now. Okay, 6 summits later. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned 6 summits in? And you've done that in a really short amount of time, I have to say. Like, you're talking about starting this in like 2022. It's only been like a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years that you've been doing summits, and you've done 6 summits in this time, which is incredible, because I've done 2 summits myself personally. One I did with a very small team, and it was a really difficult work, but I got some amazing speakers on it, and it was a really great experience. And then one summit we did with the company, with MLSP, and it was incredible success. We generated like 50,000 leads, 6 figures of income just from the summit itself. But what was really cool is we continued to sell the recordings of that summit for 4 years as part of our funnel. Yeah. So it kept making money for us 4 years later. So the asset that you can build, if you're smart about it, is really pretty incredible. So tell me, 6 summits later, about a year and a half, 2 years of experience, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned that you'd want to share with people who are, thinking about doing a strategy like this?
Biggest lessons. The first thing I would say is, the more clear I've become about what I do and what I'm passionate about, the easier it's been to find the like-minded speakers. So when I started out, like I said, I was very vague. I didn't necessarily know. I just wanted to inspire people by bringing in speakers who were living out their purpose to talk about how they got there and what they do. Now I'm all about, one of two things. One being people who want to escape the job and they want to step into that purpose-driven business. That's really what this one was all about. It was the most recent one. And finding people who found the courage and the conviction to go out and do the thing, and to do it in a way that's not, see, integrity is huge, because you see all the time people saying, I made my first million in 5 days, and it's all very, questionable. And so bringing all these speakers in, I knew I wanted speakers who've been there, done that. They're very human, they're very real, they're not hiding anything. And we talked a lot about the fact that entrepreneurship is not all smooth sailing. It can be very difficult. And so I wanted to keep it real. So having clarity about, number one, what do you want your speakers to stand for? And number two, who are the kind of people you want to bring in? So just to give you an example, when I was first doing my summits early on, I really bought in the faith aspect of it. And I wanted to really support people who are believers, Christian or not, didn't really matter. But what I noticed was it wasn't a passion for me, because I was attracting people who, and I don't say this to be disrespectful in any way, but very boxed in thinkers, like very much it needs to look like this, and I cannot step outside the box of what this is. And that was a really valuable lesson for me, because there's people out there that can serve those types of people. I'm not one of them. And so I moved away into more like purpose-driven, as in something bigger than me is guiding me. And, and my job, I think the main thing for me and the passion that I bring to the summit is I believe every single one of us is uniquely gifted. Every single one of us has something, some sort of calling in our life. And if we all actually found the courage and the resolve to step into it with support, the world would be a very different place. And so when I attract people like yourself to a summit like that, it's because I'm sharing that belief system with others. And then we're creating something together collectively. So the biggest lessons have been alignment around the speakers and around the kind of people you want to bring in. And I think the other piece I would say about the audience was doing everything I can to attract people who are committed, ready to go all in. They may be scared. I mean, who isn't? But they're ready to take things on, as opposed to people who, maybe aren't ready and need more time. So yeah, those are my biggest lessons.
Since we're talking about speakers, I'm going to shift direction just a little bit, and I'll ask a question for those that are listening that maybe aren't thinking about hosting their own summit, or maybe not thinking about starting their own podcast. I kind of think of summits and podcasts as kind of the same thing. It's just that podcasts are an ongoing thing, and a summit is an event, start and stop kind of event, right? But it's kind of the same, I don't know, the same kind of strategy in a sense. So it's one thing to host a summit. It's one thing to host a podcast. There's a lot of people that want to be speakers. They want to be speakers on a summit. They'd love to be speakers on podcasts. So for those people, as a host yourself, what are some tips that you can give us as far as like wanting to be a speaker? How do we go about getting on summits, getting on podcasts, but specifically summits? Where do I find summits to get on? Every time I see a summit, it's too late. They've already promoted it and they've got all their speakers, right? So how do I get into those circles, or where do I find out? How do I get onto a summit if I'm a speaker or I want to become a speaker? What are some tips?
So a few tips that I would say, well, first of all, I'm on a summit this week and I'm on a summit next week, but they're both previous speakers of mine. So probably the best way to have all those connections is to go out there and find those people and ask them to come on your event. That being said, if I was not running summits and I was looking to be on other stages, I think that the two most important things would be, what is this person looking for? And do I have something of value to bring to the table that is really going to serve the event and the people? There's almost I'm just going to flip the script for a minute, and I now, because my summits have sort of grown and become more and more valuable, I actually have an application process in place now. So with that being said, when I have someone apply to be a speaker, I can tell you right now that if they put the time in to explain why speaking would be valuable and what value they can bring, I'll consider them. But if they come in and say, I just want more exposure, I'm like, dude, like this isn't a one-man show. This is a collaborative. We're all here to benefit. And so really knowing what you can bring to the table and being really bold and courageous and just asking and making those connections, which as introverts, we all know that's not easy to do, but so vital because you never know. So I would say those two things. Who do you know? Number one, who do they know? And also, there's lots of groups on Facebook that are there's one called Be a Guest, Find a Guest. I have found speakers through there. I've never actually myself searched to be on other summits yet. I've been asked, but I would say something like that. But it's all in how you present yourself. It's just like looking for a job. If you say, I just want a job, they're going to be like, oh, that's nice. They want to know what you're going to bring to it. So I would say that's probably pretty important. And am I missing anything? I feel like that covers it.
That's kind of the biggest thing. Yeah. I mean, it really, we were chatting beforehand, and it really is about making just networking and making connections and getting out there. And that's something, you know, that we've always taught so much, is that social media and the internet, it's about relationships. In the end, it's all about relationships. And so one way or another, you got to get out there and make connections and build relationships. And I see Patty here in the comments asking, where do we get some applications? How do we apply for one of your summits? Oh. Right. And my recommendation would be, well, go find Katy on social media. You can go to her website. Wait, I have her banner here. KatySuik.com is her website, and you'll be able to find her on social media. She's got a group called Made for More, which actually I'm just going to share my, oh God, so many windows open. I'm not sure if I'll be able to, wait a second. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. I have way too many windows open. But
that's okay.
Her Facebook group is called Made for More, Entrepreneurship for Purpose and Prosperity. Okay. And that's the thing. Like, Katy is a summit host, just like there's podcast hosts out there and other summit hosts. And the first step is just to go check out her social media, go follow her, go like and comment on some of her stuff, and then eventually send her a little direct message. And don't ask the big ask right away, I would say. I would say find some other reason to start a conversation and just be a human being and make a friend and make a connection and see how you can add value to somebody else's business first before you ask for the request. And so I know right now I'm working with Stacy, and she's working to help get me on podcasts, to book me on podcasts.
Oh,
and
good. Yeah.
We spent hours together putting together ideas for shows, questions, suggestions for podcasts, right? If I go to a podcast host, I'm not saying, hey, put me on a show and let's get me some exposure. I'm saying, hey, I love your show, especially the episode you did on so-and-so. That was an awesome topic. I would love to speak to your audience. Here's a couple ideas for shows that I have. You want to do all the work for the other person, right? The more work, the more value that you can bring to the other person and share with them. Hey, here's my ideas. Here's how I can contribute to your audience. Here's a couple of ideas. I don't want you to do a thing. Don't worry about the questions. Don't worry about the topic. Here's the topic. Here's the questions. I'm going to make it so easy for you, right? So you always got to be thinking about the other person. And really, it's just about connections and relationships. You want to speak a little bit more about that? Because I know that collaboration and networking is a big part of your business as well.
Huge. You know, I was just thinking as you were talking about Stacy, and I think to myself, wow, it's just such a beautiful thing to connect. You know, you can trace back. I don't even remember how everybody came into play, but just hosting this last event, it was Stacy who recommended a a few other people I had, and Yolanda, who recommended you. And it's funny, the other thing about this too is I actually asked Norbert if he could be in my previous summit last fall, because I do 2 a year now. And you were in the middle of switching businesses and cleaning things up.
Oh, yes.
And you
Oh, that's
said,
right. Yes.
I said, I'll follow up with you. And I did. But imagine if I hadn't. So you got to almost like keep track of like all the people you would love to host. Or if you want to be on something, keep track of it. Find out when they host these events and nurture that relationship. And Norbert knows that I stopped him on Facebook and I said, hey, it looks like we have a lot in common, and, you know, made some comments about some other things. And I took a risk. He might have thought I was just a freak show, but it's like, you know what? Let's just be real. Let's be human. Let's just engage. Let's be ourselves. And I would say that's the most important thing. Just be yourself. If they don't like you, oh well, you know, carry on.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, guys, we're coming to the end here. We got about 15 minutes or so. We'll keep Katy on and ask a few more questions. If you guys have any specific questions about hosting a summit, being a speaker, or just about entrepreneurship or digital business in general, feel free to post your questions in the comments. Most of them are showing up. I'm seeing YouTube comments. I'm seeing Facebook comments. So hopefully we do see it here in the stream. I kind of want to ask you, Katy, now that you've been doing this for, you know, a couple of years, you've done 6 summits. What's next for you? Like, where do you see your business going and growing without giving away too much? But do you see yourself simply continuing to do summits? Are you planning your next summit right away? How do you see yourself expanding and growing now, kind of moving forward for the next 1 year, 3 years? What do you see for yourself?
It's exciting because every time we take ourselves on, new opportunities unfold. And for me right now, yes, I'm going to continue to do summits. I really love them. And every time I do one, I want to go bigger and I want to get better. And so next time, I know I'm going to hire more help, because it takes a lot of time. It's and the only reason I had to put so much back end time in this particular round, this recent one, is because I had to switch from one software to another. And there's
God,
always,
that's right.
What a nightmare.
You switched over to like a Go High Level version, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I could tell. Yeah, I could tell, because we did. Yeah, we white labeled the same software, so I'm familiar with it. And it's a learning curve for sure.
I think tech, they knew me on a first name basis pretty quickly. And yeah, but now that I've got my systems and it's good, I definitely want to be able to go bigger, create more. I also love the idea of having a podcast, and I now have over, well, if you do 6 times 30, what is that? 180. That's probably how many interviews are sitting in my collection at this point. So starting a podcast is a bit of a no-brainer. I just want to inspire entrepreneurs to get the heck out of their own way, because they know how hard it is. I only spent 12 years trying to figure it out. So there's that. I would love to get out there and do more speaking, get on stages, do more of that stuff. And I am in the process of building, I have a program called the Entrepreneurial Dreams Accelerator, and it gives me this beautiful container by which I can really nurture and support entrepreneurs as they start, grow, or pivot. Like, really support them with all 3 pillars that I talked about before, because it's a lonely road. And I'm just so passionate about helping more people be successful, because that everyone wins. Everyone wins when we're all successful. So those are some things that are going through my mind. Down in 3 years from now, gosh, I don't even know. I'm still trying to adjust to the fact that I have teenagers, one that's graduated, and I'm not old enough for this yet. How is this possible?
That's funny. We're right in the same ballpark. We've got one teenager. We've got a mixed family, 2 kids. One, our oldest, he's 18, and he's over in Toronto. He moved away to university this first year. So that was the first one that went away. My oldest daughter is 17. She's in Hawaii right now on a school trip. Yeah. So doing marine biology and stuff. So, you know, the kids, the teenagers are a huge challenge. Let me ask you one thing about your business, just to kind of get a sense. I talk a lot about business strategy and offer
Yep.
strategy, and obviously monetization, because
Mm.
it's one thing to be passionate about what we do. It's one thing to want to make an impact, but we also have to make money in business.
We do.
Otherwise, we can't keep going with our business.
Right.
So
Right.
what is your offer strategy? What is your monetization strategy? Obviously, you make money through the summits, but
Yeah.
do you also do, you were talking about your accelerator program. So is that like a group coaching program? Do you do one-on-one coaching? Do you have courses? Just kind of give us a little bit of
Mhm.
of a framework of how you make money in this business.
The framework. So it's fascinating because really it's only been in the last 8 months that I really stepped into serving entrepreneurs. So as a result of really honing in on that, I've had to not rebuild, but pivot and shift and tweak and change. So I was doing one-on-one. I was calling it chaos to clarity for a while because that seems to be something that people come to me for, is they can't seem to get that problem dialed in and marketing message dialed in. And more recently, I did launch the Entrepreneurial Dreams Accelerator is a hybrid group / one-on-one program for 6 months to really help people build that foundational piece so that it's not cracking at the foundation a year from now or 2 years, because mine had cracks. Actually, it didn't have a foundation. Let's be real. And then, so one-on-one is something I offer, very, very minimal though. And the groups is where my bread and butter comes from. And then as far as courses and workshops go, I love hosting workshops and doing master classes. It's something that I want to monetize more down the road. But I think right now, because of the recent transition, the focus is to build the sustainability on the one-on-one and the hybrid program. And then as those get, sustainable, then I'll put out more workshops and more retreats and things of that nature. So, and of course, online, whatever opportunities present themselves, and summits, continue with summits. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. So speaking of workshops, I'm going to do a quick little pitch for our workshop, which is coming up this Saturday, because I'm supposed to do that on these live streams. And me being the educator, I sometimes forget to promote. So let me do that right now. We're doing our workshop this Saturday. We try to do it about every fortnight. I love that word, every fortnight, which is bi-weekly.
I know.
Two times a month.
Fortnite.
So we've got one
Yeah.
coming up on April 13th, and then our next one is actually going to be May 2nd. We've got a week off there, but check it out, digitalmentors.com/workshop. If you're looking to monetize your knowledge through courses and coaching programs, that's what this workshop walks you through, helping you to kind of outline and strategize your business. Let's talk a little bit about, oh man, I had a question and it just totally just dropped because I wanted to do that promo. Oh, I forgot what the question
The
was.
promo, you're like, I can't forget. And then your brain, yeah.
I know. I'm like, I can't forget the promo. I have to remember the promo. Okay, we were talking about monetization. We were talking about your future vision, where you're seeing your business go. Geez Louise. All right. Well, let's just talk about working with your clients. You mentioned one of the big challenges that people have is getting that clarity initially when they're launching their business. And now working with clients, working with entrepreneurs, trying to get their business off the ground. What's the biggest advice that you can give them? So because you've gone through your journey of gaining clarity, and now you're working with clients. And what is some of the tips and the advice that you give them to help them gain clarity and figure out what their best strategy is going to be? Because do you just tell everyone to do virtual summits, or do you help them kind of create their own strategy?
Create their own strategy. So one of the things that I've learned going through coaching programs is that I don't do a one size fits all. It's very customized to the personality and the style of the person, and what they want to do, and really coach them from there. The number one advice that I always give people is, and you probably see this all the time, and they come fresh out of the gate, they want to build that website, they want to get this thing, and they want to do that thing. And it's like, first, before you do anything else, for the love of all things holy, please understand, what is the problem you solve? Who is the person you serve? What is the promise that you're delivering them? What is the process you want to take them through? Right? What is your pricing? And of course, I throw in a 6P, which is the particulars that are supporting all of those five, which is where the website and the social media and all that stuff comes in. So I spend a lot of time with people working on that, because I'm telling you, 12 years is a long time to dance around not knowing who the heck you serve, what the problem is you solve. And so having firsthand experience of wishing I had been way more clear way back when would have saved me so much money, so much time, so much confidence, energy. So my advice would be get clear right away. And it can change. I mean, there's no magic, destination. You get there and you're done. It can change, it can tweak, but you've really got to be confident in what you do in order to sell the thing that you do.
I want you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook in the replay, just go ahead and rewind that, because that's a really great lesson where Katy outlines those 6 Ps. That's the foundation of your business. Those are the fundamentals. Those are the things you got to get clear on before you can really start running and getting results. Okay, we've got a great question actually from Ernest Gibbs that I'd love to ask you, actually, because this is really interesting. He's got a very specific question.
Yep.
What do you think about this? Can you do health? I've seen a lot of health and wellness summits. That's very popular. It's a great model to use in the health and wellness niche. But can you use health and wellness summits with the goal of selling nutritional supplements and finding business partners? So I'm going to assume that Ernest is in a network marketing company and he's looking to sell some nutritional products, and then potentially finding business partners or distributors in the company as well. Do you think that a health and wellness summit could be a good model for accomplishing something like that? What do you think?
Yes, I think that the first question you'd have to ask yourself is, what is the real objective? What do you want your audience to benefit from this? Like, are they learning about, it's almost like health and wellness is a very broad thing. So if your supplements or your health and wellness products are focused on, say, something like, I don't know, diabetes, really narrowing in on a specific thing and then having a summit targeted for that. And then you can introduce people and have business partners that are speaking to why the supplement is so amazing for diabetes. So I think it's important to keep it, to really narrow in. You could do a general summit, but there's 150,000 of those every day. But the more you can narrow in, if there's something you're particularly passionate about when it comes to health and wellness, I would invite you to consider dialing into that thing, because you're going to attract the kind of people you want to work with, and you're going to be able to address the core problem. And I should actually say one more thing, Norbert, just based on that question and what we were talking about before. When you articulate the problem you solve, so critical that you can speak to it the way your audience needs to hear it. So if I say, I'm going to help Norbert get clear about his business, great. But he's probably not going to say, I'm going to hire a coach to help me get clear about my business. He's going to say, I feel like I'm not finding my people because my message isn't clear. So there's a difference between the two. So if you're hosting a summit, make sure you're speaking in the language of the people that are looking for you and for what you can offer in a summit.
Yes. And on that, could you just repeat really quickly the 6 Ps?
Yes. So the 6 Ps are the problem that you solve, making sure that that problem is articulated the way your client or customer needs to hear it. The promise, which is the solution. The person that you serve. The pricing, the price that you would charge, and the process that you take them through. And the number 6 is the particulars. It's all the elements of your business that hold those first 5 up.
Here's a question for the listeners. What P was missing? I'm going to put this question up one more time because it has to do with this question, Ernest. What P did she not say? Anyone in the comments? Now, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a StreamYard delay, but
Okay.
we're going to make you guys wait for the answer here, just in case you don't know what P was missing, because this is a huge, huge point here. Okay. She did not include P for product. That is the secret to marketing, and this is the secret to success in business. Your product doesn't matter. And the question here is all focused on the product, right? And this is a great question, Ernest. I'm not picking on you, but this is to make the point that you don't design. Yes, sure, the goal could be to sell your products, okay? And of course, that's the goal. When we hold a workshop, we have a goal to sell our mentorship program, which is our product, okay? But when we're developing the workshop, when you're developing the summit, when you're inviting the people in, when you're marketing it, the product that you're selling on the back end is not the focus. The people are the focus. Their problem is the focus. The process, the solution that you're going to deliver is the focus, but the product is not the focus. It can be sold. You can absolutely sell the product, and there's many ways to do that, but it's not the focus of the marketing, and it's not why you create it. Okay. And so I love the fact that you didn't include product in your 6 Ps. Genius.
Well, it's kind of like if I'm trying to sell you my program and I tell you about all the features and all you're going to be sleeping by the time I'm done. They don't care. Just get me to my end result and solve my problem.
Help me solve my problem. Give me that outcome, the transformation, the result. Exactly. Yeah, that is the key, guys. Okay, guess what? I remembered my question.
Oh, yay.
That I had. So we're going to wrap this up, but I want to ask you that one last question. What is your next summit? Do you have it planned? Do you have a date for it? Obviously, guys, follow Katy so that you can stay up to date on the new summits that she's going to be releasing. KatySuik.com. Subscribe to her email list, follow her on social media so you're notified of her upcoming summits. But can you tease us with your next summit? What's going on? Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, talk about catching me off guard. I'm like, I haven't quite defined the title yet.
That's fine.
It'll be in October of this year. And it will be around, so I just did one about escaping the job. I think what I'm hearing the need from people, in fact, it's so fascinating. I went through, when people join my group, they have to answer questions to get in the group. And I asked the question, what is the biggest problem that you face as an entrepreneur? And the theme that kept coming up was time. What if I don't have time? How do I get started? And the other one that I kept seeing over and over and over again was, oh gosh, now I'm having my turn to have it's right in front of me. Look how organized I am. Clarity was another one.
There we go. Right. Which is the thing that we've been talking about this whole time. Yeah.
So like, how do I even go sell this thing that I feel in my heart, but I don't have the words to articulate what it is? So the summit's going to be around those themes. I just haven't quite put it all together, but October of this year, absolutely. The dates I don't have written down, but it's typically like the second or third week of the month. So if you're interested, just follow me, let me know, and I'll make sure I keep you in the loop.
Yeah, exactly. And just another question. Sorry, I'm going to let you go here, but one more question. So with your summit being in October, when do you start work on this? Like, how many months runway do you give yourself of preparation and work putting all of these assets together? Because I know what it takes to put a summit together, and it's a lot. When do you start? When do you start this work on it?
Well, one of my favorite assets that I've created from doing these so many times is I've created a timeline, and I always work 90 days backwards. Okay. So then I know exactly what I need to be doing in the first 30 days ish is finding my speakers and securing them and getting a speaker contract in place, getting the graphics done. So I literally have everything broken down in terms of what's got to happen when. So that takes me back to September, August. So July is when I'm going to start really canvassing and looking for my people. And Norman doesn't know yet, but he's totally going to get approached, just so you know.
Cool. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. That's perfectly in alignment with what I'd love to speak about. So that's awesome. One final question, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
Oh my God, I forgot it.
That's awesome. One final question.
One final question, then I forgot it. Yeah. See, I had so many questions. I literally had so many questions as you were talking, and I can't write that quickly. I can't write them all down, so I lost it. That's okay. We got a lot from this conversation. Okay. Do you have any final words before we wrap this up?
I would say for any of you who are watching or listening, regardless of whether you plan to host a summit or if you want to be on more summits, please just honor the calling on your heart and go for it. I don't know if it's just me. I know it isn't, but I say that anyway. Do you ever feel like you're the one person where everyone else is going to go and do all the things and you're going to get left behind? And that's a feeling that I sat with for such a long time. And I realized, no, I'm not going to get left behind if I just get in there. Even if I feel like a goldfish, I can still go talk to the whales. And eventually I got bigger, and I grew stronger and I got more confident. So I just want to say, regardless of whether you're starting out or you've been at it for a while, keep trucking, keep going, keep looking for support, keep at it, because the world needs you in such a big way.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
Awesome, Katy. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Really appreciate you being here. I'm sure everybody watching appreciated it as well. Lots of great tips, lots of great advice, lots of great lessons. Guys, keep bringing your questions. Thank you guys so much for being part of this, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, and for commenting and just engaging with us. It's really awesome as we grow this channel and as we grow this platform. And this podcast eventually that we'll be using these episodes for as well. So Katy, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you go follow her on her socials. And we're going to be looking forward to that summit in October. I think it's going to be bigger and better than anything you've ever done. So we're really excited to see that. Congratulations on all your success so far. And we're looking forward for many great things to come from you as well. Thank you so much. Awesome. All right, guys.
Thank you, Norbert.
Thank you for being here, everybody. See you next week, Wednesday. And if you haven't joined us for that workshop, guys, check it out this Saturday. It's a full day workshop, digitalmentors.com/workshop. We are still giving away complimentary tickets, so you can get access to that workshop absolutely free at this point. So go check it out. Wow. All right, everybody, have a great evening, and we will see you next Wednesday. Take care.